So last week in the Gospel of Mark, I kind of forgot a really interesting note, and it was right at the end of this Gospel too. And somebody once said, if you want to know what any of the four Gospels really is most interested in, what it's really going to be about, look at what Jesus does in his first miracle. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's interesting in the Gospel of Mark, the first miracle last week in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus cast a demon out of a man. And so demons are evil, and so we can say in the Gospel of Mark, really, Jesus is all about that power to cast evil out of our world, to cast evil out of our own lives. And so we all encounter evil in our world and in our lives. And so the message of Mark in a big way is that Jesus is the Son of God, and he has the power to just straighten your life out, to make it right, to cast evil out of your lives. And so there's hope, there's confidence. We can say, all my trust is in you, Lord, because we all know there's evil in this world, for sure. You don't have to look far. In fact, most of us just quit watching the news. It's that bad. And so the other thing about Mark is he likes to use this word immediately. And it's in today's gospel too. It's in almost all the gospels, especially where Jesus heals somebody or casts out a demon or does a miracle. And so that word immediately, Greek word outhus, and is like the Old English word straightway. And so straightway in English can mean a way that is straight, like a road, a path that's straight, or it can mean immediately. Straightway they did such and such. Immediately they did such and such. And so Jesus, when we see the word immediately after a healing, we probably shouldn't think so much like immediately she got up and did something. We should think that Jesus again came to really help straighten out those things in our life that we don't even share with other people. That those hurts, those injuries, those things deep in, Jesus comes and he heals those things and he touches us. And that's really what the gospel's about today. Jesus being able to touch our lives in a way that totally changes us. Now, I was in seminary not too long ago, and I was taking this class, and it was some feminist-minded people were there, and they were upset with this passage. And they were pointing out that here's Jesus and his disciples, band of men. They come home, and they're hungry. They need lunch, and Peter's mother-in-law is sick and in bed. And so they say, heal her, Lord, we're hungry. And so he heals her, and she gets up, and what's the gospel say? Immediately, she waited on them. And you have to read our culture into the gospel to get that. It's only there if you live today. It wasn't intended by Mark. That's not what Mark is going for. Here's what Mark is going for. That whenever Jesus touches somebody, whenever Jesus heals somebody, not only is their life straightened out, it's transformed, and they become that person every one of us has been called to be. To love one another, to serve one another. And so, as we are touched and healed for our hurts, our brokenness, our unforgiveness, all of a sudden now we become people who love and serve one another, love and serve everyone. It really is all about that. More than anything, it's about serving. It's about being healed. It's about being changed. And we all need healed. We all need touch. Before I was a priest, once upon a time, in a previous life it seems, I was a marriage and family therapist. And I read this book about healing people, and it said the most profound feeling among humans, in humans, is hurt. Every one of us can touch that place in our life where we hurt, whether we've had a loss, or we're grieving, or somebody's let us down, or we quit believing in ourselves. Whatever it is, we all can touch that place. And when Jesus speaks into our life and says, not only am I a son of God, the Son of God, not only do I have the power to heal you and to remove evil from your life, I also have the power to make you a son of God. I have the power to make you a daughter of God. And now you too can know who you are. And so Jesus, at the end of this gospel, he goes out and he starts serving again. At the end of this Mass, I'm like ready to take a nap, and some neighbors of mine, when I was a little boy growing up or a teenager growing up, they were going to do a funeral for their daughter. A woman about my age died, and Father Leo at Highland, Holy Spirit in Highland, was going to do the funeral. And the day before the funeral, Father Leo died. And so they called me and they said, Father Steve, we don't know anybody. You're the neighbor, there's the neighbor boy who's a priest. Will you do our funeral? And I did. And so they've been calling me, and I did a wedding, and I went down and anointed their dad now. Bill Safransky's passed, and I'll do the funeral at 2. And so we're going to run down there and do that to serve and to help them. But I wanted to tell you the story of healing. In his room when he was dying, after I had anointed him, his family gathered around and they're all praying the rosary. And as people my age can get in a large family, you got all kinds of people in a large family, don't you? Some serious, some not so serious. Some can pray the rosary pretty well, some not so well. And so they started messing up on the rosary, and they started laughing about it and laughing at each other. And Bill, he's already mostly in heaven, the man who's dying. He's actively dying, and he came back almost from heaven, and he tries his best to sit up, and he gives this grunt like, which meant, get serious. And they did, and they finished out the rosary, and when they were done, this family who were grieving, who were hurting, were really, really touched by Christ right there. The presence of Jesus was in the room. The presence of God was in the room. And this peace that passes understanding, that you can't even explain, this profound peace was there in the room. And they all felt it, and they all knew it. It's almost as if they went most of the way with Bill into heaven, and then they backed out, and he just kept going. And they just talk about that the whole time I met with them to plan the funeral, how in their time of hurt, Christ was there and was able to touch them, comfort them in their grief. And then now they're just telling everybody about it. It's hard to say when you meet with God. It's hard to put into words how profound it was, how amazing it was to be there on the threshold of heaven with a loved one. But what God calls us to do is, with that comfort God gives you, with that healing God works in your heart, He doesn't want you just to receive it. He wants you to receive it. He wants you to be open. And then He wants you to go out and share that healing with our world, that comfort with our world, to comfort other people with the consolation you received when Jesus came and touched you in your life, whether at the Mass or in prayer or wherever it is. There's a place in the Gospel. We talked about Mark, what Mark's all about, Jesus overcoming evil. Then we got Matthew, and we got Luke written after that. And way at the end of the century, in the 90s of the first century, at the very end of it all, the Gospel of John's written. And the Gospel of John, you can almost see the thinking going on. They're like, what is the church? Does the church need to hear about the Eucharist? And they don't even include the Last Supper. They don't even include the words of institution. Jesus doesn't say, take, eat, this my body, or anything like that. You know what's in the Gospel of John? What the church wasn't getting, that they needed one more time to hear? The foot washing. That's what's in the place of the Eucharist in the Gospel of John. So when we come here and we do this, Jesus takes off his robes and he wraps himself with a towel and he goes around and he washes everyone's feet. He serves them. And then he gets up and he puts his robe back on and he says, if I, being your master and Lord, have washed your feet and served you, how much more should you, who are my followers, wash one another's feet and serve one another? That was the part that was missing. That and away from a little girl in the front pew. Hi, honey. Yeah, that's always better than a homily. So, yeah, that's our faith. And at the end of the Mass, after we've been in the presence of God, after we've given each other that peace that's so profound, after we've been touched, we've taken the real presence of God and put it in us, yeah, we've been healed, then the deacon will say, go out. Go in the peace of Christ. Go in the love of Christ, to love and to serve one another, to do that one for another, because that's who we are. That's our call. That's our faith. And what a wonderful faith we have.